My name's Rakidzich. This is Airbnb Automated. I'm going to walk you through my first year on the Airbnb platform before I started making millions of dollars per year with my 50 properties. This should help you understand how you can get started, what your expectations should be, and how you can grow a business from scratch, starting with property number one. So without further ado, let me show you what it was like right from the beginning. Welcome back, Airbnb family. So we're going to go back in time, all the way back to what looks like to be 2000 and, wow, is that 2014? Wow, that's like 5 years ago. I've been in the game 5 years. So I started my first property November of 2014. We're gonna walk through how much money I made starting right away. I'll talk about those properties, and we're gonna look through that first year, my first $100,000. We're gonna talk about my growth, and I've got a couple cool things to show you here that I did not know I was gonna talk about in this video, and you're gonna love it. So let's jump right in. Let's start a screencast, and we're gonna take a look at this. So in order for me to show you how much money I made on Airbnb right away, I had to go back through my Clarity account, which is the website that I use to do consulting calls. I took a series of screenshots, and put them together to show every month of income that I had up through 2017. November 2017 is when I put this together, because Airbnb's platform only lets you go back about a year or so in order to see how much money you made last year. So we have to go back. So you'll see once we get to this point that my first month on Airbnb was November 2014, and between that and December, I made almost $8,000 on my first couple of properties. So the story there is I had a high-rise sky house downtown Houston. They're totally not Airbnb friendly, and I didn't find that out until later because I started my business on accident. I got these apartments for employees of mine for my other business, and then when they moved out, I needed to do something with those spaces. So I lived in one and then had two that I put on Airbnb. Well, after that, I noticed that I was making some pretty good money for my first 2 months. So coming to month 3, which was January, I was traveling with my media company to Florida, Chicago, actually Tampa and West Palm Beach, so multiple spots in Florida, San Antonio. I was all over the place. So I put my third property, my own, up on Airbnb. And so for our first 3 properties, we're making somewhere between like $8 and $12,000 a month. So for the first year, I had 3 properties. I would typically do my own cleaning unless I wasn't in town. And then I hired a cleaning company. I was paying like $55 a cleaning. This, of course, was something we learned you could modify and really increase your profitability later on. Once we got past these 3 properties, once we got to about 5 or 6 properties, we hired our first in-house cleaner, and we paid that person by the hour. I think we started by paying like $14 an hour. We've slowly lowered that down for newbies and stuff, but instead of paying $55 a housekeeper per apartment to be cleaned, paying $14 an hour, we can clean all 3 apartments in one building in 3.5 hours or so. We're paying $55 per day instead of like $165. Huge savings. So you'll notice that my first full year on Airbnb, I made $115,000 and change in revenue. Minus our housekeeper costs and minus our rents were probably somewhere near $6,000, I think, because I had a really nice apartment in the building, so my rent was like $2,400 for one of them. So we're paying about $6,000 a month, so you're looking at $72,000 in rents. Utilities and stuff, you're probably looking at, $150 per unit, so $500 per month. So you're looking at $6,000 in utilities, rents, supplies probably. So you're looking at almost $80,000 in hard costs, and then your housekeeper costs. So I think ballpark, we made about $20,000 to $25,000 net over the course of the year with our properties, which for 3 properties, considering we didn't own them, wasn't that bad. But of course, we started to optimize. We started to do a lot better later. I didn't take this seriously though until 2016, coming into 2017 when the Super Bowl hit, and you could actually see that in this chart as well. But I think what's important to be said here for my first year is I got in by accident. I added properties because I noticed that it was good. I had a building that essentially did not know that I was going to Airbnb because I didn't know I was going to Airbnb. They gave me non-renewal notices. So my leases started in March. And then I had to move in March because they saw that I was Airbnb-ing the properties. So I moved to another property and then picked up those spaces. And we stayed about 3 units, maybe 3, 4 apartments total for the whole first year. And then we started adding on 5, 6, 7 throughout that. We had 5 or 6 apartments until it was October of 2016, and then we wanted to be up by 10. We want to be up to 10 units by the Super Bowl 2017, and that's when we started taking this seriously and really started growing. But as a part-time Airbnb host, you're going to clean your own apartments a lot of the times. If you pay somebody else, it's a lot harder to find a good deal for a cleaner if you only have 1 or 2 properties. And if I was going to change the way that I did it, I would have probably found another Airbnb host or 2, and we would have shared a cleaner. I would have convinced them that we were on the same side. Let's collectively hire somebody and pay that person by the hour to really buy down our costs. That would have been a way that I could have made more money or kept more net. Also, I bought a lot of my furniture secondhand for my first property. I went to antique places, I did Craigslist, and it took a lot of time to set up that apartment. And I realized that if I was doing it professionally, like I am now, the time it took me to buy secondhand furniture at a good price, I was missing out on days and days of rent money that I was paying, plus I was not getting Airbnb guests. I could have had an extra 10 days of Airbnb income, which could have been like $110, $120 a night. So I could have had an extra $1,000 plus in my pocket by having been faster with my property acquisition. So I might have saved $400 or $600 in furniture, but I lost $1,000 in income, right? So another lesson to be learned here is saving money doesn't necessarily help if it costs you time, because your lease costs you money every day. That's another thing that we can learn from this. Otherwise, what else can be learned from my first year? Another thing is that it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. I remember that my first property, the one that I put on Airbnb eventually, it was empty for a couple months because I didn't know what to do with it. And I was a little bit nervous. I'm like, because I had a friend tell me about Airbnb back then, and I was nervous that I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to create a listing. I didn't know how to make something that somebody could live in. It's so funny to look back now because it's wallpaper to me now. We set up properties every single month. We're putting up new properties, and we've mastered the art of launching Airbnb units in apartment complexes. But I can tell you, I was nervous. I was this new kid who didn't understand it yet, and I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work out, but let's try. And the only reason why I did it is I was losing money on the unit. If I didn't have the apartment already, I probably wouldn't have done it. So just like when I first started my first business, I was homeless and I needed to do something in order to make some money. So I had nothing else to lose. In this case, I had an apartment I was losing money on. I had nothing else to lose. I owned another business at the time, and I was halfway prepared to just let the profit from business number 1 offset the losses from having an apartment I wasn't going to use, because otherwise I could have sublet it to somebody. But I'm like, you know what, let's try something new. So if you're nervous, if you have never owned your own business before, if you think you're gonna screw up, just put that in your pocket and save it for later. Of course you're gonna screw something up, right? When was the last time you did something perfectly? And we make mistakes all the time. We don't have 5-star reviews on our 10,000 reservations. We don't have a perfect score, and it's not important to have a perfect score. This is an opportunity to learn and grow. One thing I can tell you about guests is when you're small, when you have 1, 2, or 3 properties, it's a lot easier to get a 5-star review because you're gonna be much more human. You're gonna be talking to your guests more. You have more time for your guests. And one thing people love about Airbnb is that the hosts are human, they're available, they're around. You're not really a corporation. You're not a business like the Hilton or the Wyndham or the Sheraton are. And that's why people choose Airbnb a lot of times. So one of the key differences between when I was new and where we are now is we are much more a large portfolio of properties, and we struggle to keep our human element now. If you're a small operator with 1 to 5 properties, stay human, keep it. It's unbeatable. It's a market advantage above and beyond anything else, is that if you are just truly there for your guests, it's gonna glow on your reviews. Be unique. When you pick up 15, 20 properties at a time, you're likely going to try to find a way to save costs on your build out. If you're buying 20 apartments worth of furniture, you're gonna try to unify your expenses by buying all of the same couch, and you're gonna buy all of the same pots and pans and stuff like that. If you only have 1 or 2 apartments, and that's the kind of where you plan on starting off, you don't have to, shoot for uniformity yet. That is an operational advantage that you take advantage of at scale. If you're going to get 10 units in the same apartment complex, yes, get all the same furniture for 2 different layouts maybe, and I have a video on that and why you want to set up multiple apartments the same way. But that's much more at scale. If you're going to be boutique, own it, be boutique. So start with 1 property and make it really cool looking. And so my advice for you on this, the reason why you would want to do this is if you went through the Airbnb platform in your neighborhood and looked at all the Airbnbs that are out there, you're going to notice that there's certain styles. You're going to find somebody like me who's got 50 properties in your backyard, and you're going to notice that they're all set up a very specific way. And you're going to notice that there are stylistic there's stylistic oversaturation per se. If you can set up 1 apartment or 2 apartments that stylistically look very much different than your competitors, you're much more likely to get booked because you're going to stand out. So take advantage of the fact that you're small when you're new. You're much more likely to be wildly successful when you're new as far as your margins go because you're cleaning your own apartments. You're going to have better reviews than everybody else. You can care for your pricing strategy more. You'll be more active with it. You're going to make less little mistakes that cost you 10 or 20 bucks here or there because as a single property operator, you'll have much more attention. And I know that you're going to find that a little bit hard to believe, that a single property operator can make more money than a large-scale guy, but we're talking per property here. You should make more money per property than I make per property because you have just 1 or 2. You should do a better job with those 2. And you should expect to. Even though I've got years in the game, I think you can outplay me with 1 or 2 properties because there's things that I can't do as well as you because I've got so many now. We're operationally driven. We're not charisma driven anymore. So accept it for what it is. It's like driving a car. It's like learning to drive. Everything that you do is going to just make you want to bite your nails, pull on your hair. You're going to be nervous. You're going to dream about this when you go to sleep, when your property's new. You're going to be overly concerned the first time that a guest says something negative about your space. The first time that something goes wrong with your building that you need a maintenance request, you're probably going to lose your cool a little bit because the first time anything happens that's hard, it's hard, and it's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. So I welcome you to start this journey. I welcome you to do better than I did when I was new. Hopefully this channel helps you with that. And if you have any questions about your start, about your launch, about your beginning, about how we can help you be a great Airbnb host right from the start, ask, put it in the comments, because one big point here is that people choose to use Airbnb. They could choose to stay in a hotel. And if we Airbnb hosts, if we all do a good job, then people will continue to use Airbnb, right? So we all as a collective nation, multiple nations of hosts, represent the platform, represent the experience. And if we have bad hosts, then there will be bad experiences, there'll be less users. Airbnb loses travelers because of bad experiences. And we have 8 statistics every host should know, is another video I think you should watch next. And it talks about people's negative experiences and how frequently it happens. And if we can beat those numbers, if we can raise the bar as hosts all around the world, we'll have more users on the platform and we'll all make more money, right? So why not tell you how to build a successful Airbnb business? It's good for me at the end of the day. And of course it's going to be good for you. And let me take this opportunity to welcome you to the Airbnb family. If you're not here yet, welcome. So thank you for watching Airbnb Automated. I hope that you make a ton of money and you get to quit your job and you get to tell your boss that he's a jerk and to take a hike, and that you can use this to take sabbaticals, to take multi-month trips somewhere and go learn photography like I did, or sing more karaoke like I do. I hope you use this as a way to actualize your passions in life. And if you're passionate about interior design or real estate, then 2 birds with 1 stone, right? So once again, thank you, and I will see you on the other side.